Welcome to the Backpage Pod, our latest episode. We are privileged to have Chris Billiam Smith with us at the Vitality Stadium. Home turf for you.
It is indeed. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. I've got Grant Ahern, my co-host, with me as always. First trip to the Vitality for you?
Yeah. First time I've ever been to this one.
You're not here to pick up Andoni Iraola and
Not
take
yet.
you back to
Not
Tottenham?
yet. The Uber is ready though.
I think Chris might stand in the way.
Yeah, you can't have it.
I'm not going to argue.
So I think obviously we've been speaking for quite a long time about doing something. You're in an interesting place coming into 2025, but let's just park that for a moment and talk about football, because it's probably a good time to do that, isn't it, with Cherries at the moment? Absolutely flying, and we're speaking to you on the back of a 5-0 win over Nottingham Forest, which I think if people hadn't realised already what Iraola's doing here, they've probably woken up this week and realised there's something special going on. How and why? What have you seen from him and his time here?
Well, I don't know. There's a belief in the lads. You know, they're never gonna. You know, we've got Liverpool coming up this weekend, which, you know, by the time this podcast goes out might be a bad result, but they're never gonna have more belief than now going against the league leaders, who are, you know, obviously stomping the league at the moment, but. We've got 11 players, first team players at the moment. We've got no striker. Got Lewis Cook, our centre mid, playing right back. And then we've won our last 2 games 4-1 against Newcastle, who are 4th in the league, and then 5-0 against Forest, who are 3rd in the league. So it's phenomenal what he's done. I know a couple of players, Lewis Cook, one of them, I spoke to him when he came in. I said, how's pre-season been under the new gaffer? And he said, yeah, it's been hard, but not like loads of running. Just everything we're doing is like with the ball. And I was like, that's interesting. It makes sense because it's specific, but he's just said it was a different kind of pre-season to what he's been used to, maybe under Eddie and stuff like that, where they maybe do more running and stuff like that. And but yeah, obviously it wasn't the easiest start for Andoni, but since sort of November, the season he came in, we've been flying since then. So. It's a good time to be a cherry.
Well, we hear a lot about Tottenham's injuries, Grant, specifically, and injuries in general this season in the Premier League. But you have got so many players missing, as you mentioned, and he's still managing to get a tune out of them. And we don't really hear him moaning too much about kind of the state of play with that. So it makes it even more amazing what he's managing to do with the sort of paper-thin first-team squad he's had, really.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, the last few weeks have been. We obviously lost both our strikers in the space of like 3 days, and it was, you know, one of our second striker, Enes Unal, just scored an unbelievable free kick against West Ham, and then Evan Nilsson come in and settled him very quickly and put on some great performances. So, yeah, it's to lose them so quickly, and then just Dango's fitted in. He's played left wing, he's played left back this season. He's now playing as a striker, got a hat-trick against Forest. So the versatility of the players is, you know, credit to them and the work that Andoni's doing.
Yeah, it really is incredible. Where does it end for you, Chris? Like, can you keep this going and get into Europe?
Well, I think if the table had been the whole of 2024, we would have finished 7th.
Right.
Which is kind of what I'm clinging on to at the moment and hoping we can get there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure my wife would be too happy with me going to loads of European away games.
European tour this season, yeah.
But to think that we're even in the conversation of Bournemouth being in Europe is crazy. I used to sit just behind us there in that north stand as a season ticket holder, would have been when I was 12, so 22 years ago. Wow. And yeah, I had season ticket there for 2 seasons when we were in League 2 and then League 1. Yeah. So then, if you told me then that, you know, 22 years time, you would have boxed here and won a world title, I would have gone, one, I don't even box, so I was like, going to happen, because at that stage I didn't box. And the lads are going to be pushing for Europe, I would have bit your hand off. So yeah, I'm enjoying every moment.
Fantastic. You have obviously started touring the football grounds, haven't you, in your own career? Really?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that night you had here on the pitch and your memories. That will go down as one of the greats, won't it, for you?
Yeah, I mean, I get emotional and goosebumps just thinking about it and talking about it. It's such a special night. Obviously, the dream was always to, I mean, when I was sat up there, was to play on the pitch as when I was a 12-year-old, but I think I was quite naive to how far off my ability was for playing on it. But and then when I turned pro and we had a few fights, we started getting in the conversation of sort of maybe one day I'll be able to fight on the pitch. I mean, the night before my debut, we were at home. We had a home Prem game, and I walked out on the pitch. I think George Grove sorted it through his agent, who was Eddie Howe's agent or something,
Right.
and managed to get me at the night before my pro debut, which was lovely. And then the years went on, and then we managed to speak about it with Jeff Mostyn, who was the chairman at the time, and the club were the marketing department here have become friends with, have really helped push me, and the club have got behind me. And then obviously we got that night against Lawrence, and it was just perfect. You know, everything from the weather, everyone who's here, the opponent, Lawrence, I've been in my gym and I'd wanted to box since I was an amateur. The ring walk, everything, even down to, you know, the fight going to points, because you still get that drama of, am I going to get it or not?
Yeah,
Whereas if you knock them out, it's instantaneous, and it's like you don't get that sort of that weight and that anticipation. That anticipation builds that emotion. And when he said "and then you know, I'm sure everyone's seen that reaction of me falling down onto my knees in tears after Shane picking me up, and my wife jumping in the ring. I'm so lucky to have that moment, and just such a special moment. It will never be topped in my career, because it's your first world title. The scenario of where it is, who it's against. From my point of view, I wanted to box Lawrence. From Shane's point of view, it's an old fighter of his. And so there's a lot of stuff attached to that. Even though there's no bad feeling between Shane and Lawrence, it was you still be hard to lose to someone you used to train. So it was for the whole team. It was an amazing night.
So, just speaking of football stadiums, we actually saw you at Selhurst Park. We was at that fight, weren't we?
Another football stadium.
We was at Selhurst Park.
You're doing them all.
That night. Just great. So, I mean, Bournemouth isn't a boxing town, but you've kind of made it a boxing town. You know, a bit like back in the old days with Barry McGuigan and Belfast. You've kind of made Bournemouth a boxing town. Like you said, you won your world title here. You know, how does that feel being the boxing name in Bournemouth?
Yeah, I mean, boxing's grown huge during my amateur time. I think when I started boxing, there was 3 amateur clubs in Bournemouth. By the time I finished as an amateur, there was 10 to 12. So it had grown anyway, and I think it would have been a matter of time before someone's doing what I'm doing. I was just very lucky to be riding that crest of the wave, and it's great. You know, we've got obviously Lee Cutler's come through recently in terms of actually announcing himself on the scene. Me and him used to train together at Paul ABC as amateurs, and now he's out training in the gym with me in London, which is great, and it's amazing to have him from down here as well. Steve Bendel was from Coventry but based down here his whole pro career. I used to work with Steve, so Steve never boxed down here, but he always was the name. He was on the back page of the local paper, the Echo and stuff. So I remember seeing his articles when I kind of just started boxing. And I ended up working with Steve, ended up training him actually he carried on his career quite late till he was 40. And I was training him for the last year or so, which was a bit wild, but it's grown so much down here, and it's an honour to be sort of the forefront of that. But I'm sure there's going to be many more champions over the next 20 years or so, and I'd love to see another world title fight here with someone in 10, 15, 20 years time, and
could be you in the corner.
maybe but yeah, it was that'd be amazing. And the town has just got behind me so much, and I'm very grateful for that. And like I said, Lee's coming through, and we've got Frank Warren's bringing a show, which is Southampton lads sort of headlining it, but down to the Bic, which is another great venue.
Obviously you live here, but you train in London. How does the sort of, is that easy, or do you find that quite difficult? Because obviously when you go into camp and stuff, is it a hard thing to do, because it's not local, is it? Really?
No, so where we are in London, it's the wrong side of London. It's the opposite side. We're sort of southwest of London, and we train in northeast. So it's it's a 2.5 hour minimum journey. So I usually go up on a Sunday night. I put my little boy to bed on a Sunday night, and then me and Lee drive up, and then come home on a Friday, in deep camp. So that's difficult, being away from my wife and son for 5 days a week, especially at the age he's at. Every week I come back, he's grown, he knows the new words, everything's changing all the time. And especially now he's starting to understand that I go away, and probably plays up a little bit for his mum at home. So yeah, that's the hardest thing, not being able to be there for them. And it feels very selfish, because you're doing it. Obviously, I'm doing it for them, but it's my thing that I'm doing. And I think kind of my career's changed and outlook on it's changed, because I felt like I was doing it for me probably up until this point, and now I feel like I'm doing it more for the whole family, myself included, but for the whole family a lot more, and our future and stuff like that. But it's definitely difficult.
Have you got have you mapped out a path to regaining the world title now? Have you got a plan in place? Obviously you've got your up and coming opponent at Tottenham. When is that?
April.
Yeah.
Ben Eubank card.
Yes, on the Ben Eubank.
Fatal Fury, we decided.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Fatal Fury.
So.
City of the Wolves.
Yes.
Is the subtitle of it. I don't know what that means. I don't know if you know.
I think it's a computer game of sorts that they're sponsoring or something like that.
At least
so I believe that's what they've named it that, and it's their first of their Fatal Fury cards. I think they've said, so I imagine there'll be numerous Fatal Fury cards.
If it's City of the Wolves, they need to have Tottenham Wolves that day. It would have made sense, wouldn't it? Boxing on the pitch, really. The City of the Wolves thing doesn't mean much.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Have you got a plan? Have you mapped out one with Ben to get yourself back?
Yeah, I mean, we were trying to get straight back into a world title fight with Badu Jack for WBC. We were over at the convention. He got reinstated as champion. Noel McCallion is in a dispute with his promoter, so he's champion in recess. But then they made Badu Jack to fight the number one, which was Ryan Rosicky. Ryan Rosicky was number one. Peralta was number two. They boxed the weekend before and drew. Then Rosicky and Peralta. Number three was Sislak, and then I was number four in the rankings, and they kind of made the top three and the champion box off. So obviously now I'm boxing Brandon Clanton, who's number 5 at the WBC. So for me, that's just it. I may have been able to get the Badu Jack later down the line, but it's just too good an opportunity to pass up. It's a huge card. It's a reputable opponent, where it's number 5 of the WBC is the only one left out of the best of the rest in those rankings that I could have boxed. So that's going to put me right up there, and it hopefully move a shot for that title next. So that's kind of the route we're taking. Ideally, we would have liked it straight away. Doesn't always work like that, especially coming off the back of a loss. So I need to take this opportunity. It's a huge opportunity on such a big card to really make a statement, and that's the plan.
Well, like you say, he's the best opponent you had available to you ranking wise anyway. So
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's a good shout.
Was there ever any doubt that you would come back after the defeat at all? Did you think about what came next and whether you sort of had enough, or was it always going to be you carried on?
I think I was always going to carry on. It was definitely difficult in the few days after, lack of sleep, in a lot of pain, bad and bruised. But once you get over the emotion of it, and you sort of compartmentalise everything, and then realise that you can't go out like that anyway. Not that I want to go out, not that I want to finish, but even if I did, I wouldn't be able to go out like that. Do you know what I mean? So it's important that I just give the rest of my career, next few years, absolutely everything. And it was a good fight.
Yeah.
Plenty of things I did wrong in the fight with Ramirez, but a very, very good fighter. Yeah. And the experience as a whole was a great experience. Lots of lessons learned. Obviously, the result and the performance wasn't necessarily what I wanted, but just got to move on from that and learn.
It sounds like you've got plenty of hunger for the future as well. Are you at the age now where perhaps people are asking you what's next and things like that? And do you begin to think about what happens once you've hung up your gloves one day, whenever that is?
Yeah, I mean, kind of been planning or at least thinking about what's next, because you have to plan whilst you're still in the sport. You can't just retire and go, okay, I want to be pundit, I want to be this. It's kind of integrating it in on the way out, and then whenever I do decide to call it a day, at least you've then got a back catalogue of experience and stuff like that, and or qualifications or whatever it may be. So yeah, I think about it, yeah, but it's not necessarily stuff that I have to wait for. It's stuff that I can do, and like I said, integrate it into my career, whether that's punditry, whether that's just educating myself on stuff that I'm looking at, whether that's helping other athletes or investments or whatever it may be. It's just important to keep the brand as a whole, my brand as a whole, available for different routes.
Yeah, is there anything in particular you sort of look at? I mean, what about here, where you're so sort of revered and you obviously know the club really well? Is there any crossover between the football and the boxing in the future?
Yeah, we're having conversations about that, where I'd love to have a role within the club. What that looks like, not sure, but we've had a few conversations with, and I've done bits in the past, like I said, sort of integrating it in. Is I've done some stuff with the players in the past with Chicken and Blues, a restaurant down here, which actually sponsored me for a few fights. We kind of did like a truth or jab episode, it was called, and it was either have a barbecue wing or a hot wing with a couple of the players if they got it wrong. Right. Really good fun, and I was hosting that, which was new to me. I hosted my own podcast in COVID, but that was new because it was with, you know, my idols. Like these are professional footballers. At the end of the day, that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I was there with like Dom Solanke and Anton Semenyo, and we're all having a laugh, and the lads made me feel very welcome, and it was really, really nice to do. And yeah, it went all right. I dealt with it. I kept my fanboy syndrome quite low, and didn't get too overhyped. Tried to act as natural as possible, but yeah, it was really fun to do, and we're hoping to do more of that stuff. And yeah, you know, maybe post career I can look at doing more sort of content or hosting with the club or whatever it may be. Fantastic.
It must be exciting at 34. You're coming into a new year where you've got another football stadium outdoor. I mean, you're ticking them off, all the Premier League grounds, to be fair.
Yeah.
But you know, to be on such a big card again, and obviously have something like that to look forward to, it sort of feels like in your career you were sort of have risen really sort of steadily into the recent years, because perhaps at the beginning you weren't spoken about as much as some other fighters in your division at your weight, and perhaps the expectations weren't as high on you as they were on other people, but you probably surpassed that by a long way. And does it feel like the fact that it's gone like this for you and you're on these big cards is justification and vindication of what you thought you could achieve?
Yeah, I think so. I think you know, like you said, it's been a Premier League football stadium one a year for the last 3 years. It'll be after this one. So I was very, very fortunate to be in that position. But like you said, there's been a lot of hard work. I've always stayed in the gym through all the tough times of Lawrence joining the gym. That was a real hard time for me, because it was like he's number one in the country, and that's as a fighter, that's your target when you're at that level of sort of going into English sort of British title level. That's your target. He was British champion, I think, when he joined the gym. So it was like, okay, and I had to get my head around that, have a discussion with Shane, and I thought, oh, he'll win a world title, move up to heavyweight, and then I'll sort of follow him to the world title. Obviously left the gym, and it turned out how it did, which was amazing for me. But yeah, just staying through that hard time and staying strong and staying in the gym, not throwing my toys out the pram as such, and leaving the gym. I stayed in the gym every day and sort of marked my territory, if you would. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of spars there. Lawrence got the better of me, but yeah, it was a tough time for me in my career. But yeah, all the success and things that come with it, you know, the lack of hype, I think it's been a blessing, to be honest. I think the amount of people that get hyped and don't live up to it, and if they do, it's very, there's still plenty of doubters, because the doubters have been given this hype, and I'd much rather do it my way. I don't think I would have been able to deal with the other way, if I'm honest with you, or something to happen overnight, where I've gone from nothing to everything. It's been a very gradual process, and that's down to the McGuigans and their matchmaking and their managing. Is has, as we've all seen through the years with everyone they've managed, it's been perfect, and it's been no different from me. You know, the right fights at the right time, the right risks, like the Richard Riakporhe first fight was a risk. In a way, it didn't pay off because I didn't get the win, but that in itself, how close the fight was after it'd been blowing everyone away, it benefited my career and helped build it was good exposure for me. And then off the back of it, got the Craig Glover Commonwealth title fight, which was a 50-50 fight. If I lose that, there's a lot of pressure on that fight. Won that, and then kind of just been a gradual sort of increase and nice trajectory since then. And then obviously coming down to Bournemouth to the bit with the Isaac Chamberlain fight, which was kind of announced me that next level. I'd just beaten Tommy McCarthy, but over on DAZN where not as many eyes are on it, and then all of a sudden on an undercard as well with Conor Benn, and then I'm headlining in my hometown on Sky Sports in the summer, the workouts on the beach. It was amazing. It was a whole new world for me, and but I felt very at home with that. And for years I'd been on undercards, either chief support or even lower down the card, and that's how I'd always felt in the gym as well. And it was nice to break out from that and become a headliner, become sort of headline my own shows in my hometown and on Sky, where the eyes are so many eyes on it. And obviously after that we had 4 fights down there back to back. We had 3 at the Bic, and obviously the one here with Lawrence, and that just, but it was always a gradual increase. So then obviously the Lawrence fight was a big step up, but that lack of hype and the gradual increase in how well managed my career was, the right fights at the right time. We've seen lads, and no disrespect to them, but like Jordan Thompson, for example, he'd gone from not fighting for a British title to fighting for a world title against Opataya, and got handily beaten. And I think I said it to him in the change room after, and I just said, you've jumped from here, mate, to here. You've got to take those steps. You can't jump to the top of the mountain. You've got to take it step by step, and that's what the McGuigans are very good at doing.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Do you have an idea, sort of, in your head as to how many more fights you'd like to have, or is there an age that you think that's when I'll stop? Or do you think you'll just get to the end of a fight one day and just be like, yeah, that'll do now?
No,
like some fighters do.
I think I'll probably know before my last fight. I don't know when that last fight will be, but I think I'll probably know before the last fight that this will be my last one. But yeah, I don't know when that will be. But I also don't want to go on too long. Got a young family, so it's and I hate missing that time, and that's the biggest driving factor towards retirement, to be honest with you, is my family. I want to spend more time at home, but to get the results I need to be up in London with Shane, because that's what's always worked. So it's that's the difficult balance in acting, and I think I'll know before my last fight when I'll that will be my last fight, but I just don't know when that will be yet.
Would you like it to be here? Would you like to come back here and have it here?
I'm 50-50 with it. I'd love, never ever going to turn down a fight here, because it's home for me. It's always been my sporting home for many years, obviously since having a season ticket, and then to box here. So I'm never going to turn down a fight here. But at the same time, that night was so special. If it's left alone, it's left alone, and I'm quite happy with that. I'll always have that. Nothing's going to get more perfect about that night. There's absolutely nothing that you could change that would change it. Maybe less cut on my eye, but maybe less blood. But just everything about it was perfect. In my son's first birthday, the day before, and I said, I promise you I'm going to bring you a belt home for your present. Of course he didn't understand me, but but all those little intricacies, the date as well, George Groves won his world title on that date, 27th of May, and I was at that fight, and George's my favourite fighter, that sort of thing. Winning it at the football stadium, like I said, was just a dream. Barry McGuigan had done it. George won his at a football stadium as well. So everything about that was so perfect that I'm quite happy if it is left alone. But once again, like I said, to do another ring walk here would be massively special to me, and it gives me goosebumps thinking about it, because that ring walk alone is something that I watch back. I don't even watch the fight. I just watched the ring walk back, and it was a very special ring walk to have everyone there supporting me like I used to support the players on the pitch. Was just absolutely crazy.
Your next fight is obviously on the undercard of Eubank and Ben. What's your opinion? Because that fight's been an absolute drama to get put together. What's your view on the fight itself? Do you have an opinion on how you see it going, or do you not want to say?
I back in this situation. I think Eubank's boxed at a higher level. He's the bigger man. So if I had to put my money on someone, and Conor might have a go at me for this if he sees this, because I know Conor well, but I'm happy for him to prove me wrong. But I'd pick Chris, but it's an intriguing fight, isn't it? If Conor can carry his power we've seen in the past and that tenacity up, it could be awkward for Chris, but it's I'd edge towards to Chris winning it, to be honest, but mainly because of the weight and the experience. But a lot of people pick Lawrence to beat me, so I was going into that fight as a 3-1 underdog, and so we know underdogs can win. I've been underdog many times myself, and come through. So nothing would surprise me. But if I had to pick a winner, I think I'd pick Eubank.
I think when we look over your career, there's some really standout moments. You mentioned the fight here, obviously. Have you been fortunate to have some good dance partners as well, I suppose, in Coley and Reactpour, the right people at the right time? And how does that kind of work? Do you think, look, I'm not sure about these guys, but we could be useful to one another to set up some big fights here? Do you sort of look at the whole picture?
Yeah, and I think, like you said, I've been so fortunate that I've had those dance partners. Like Richard had beaten Sam Hyde and Tommy McCarthy before me, so he's beat 2 British lads before the first fight, and then he's beat me, and then I went and beat Craig Glover, who was a very, very good fighter, and Nathan Forley, another British lad. Richard boxed Jack Massey, so like it's all a British scene there, right. And we're all fighting each other. I obviously got to fight Isaac Chamberlain, which is obviously a great fight as well, and then Isaac had boxed Lawrence, and everyone had boxed everyone, and I think that was what I said during that time. I said it's so good that all of us Brits are fighting each other, could easily avoid one another, and it's still happening now. I know Isaac's just unfortunately been injured with the fight with Vidal, but they were going to fight each other, but now Vidal's fighting Chef Clark on the same card as me. So, and that's what it's about. That's what a good scene is about, and a good sort of generation is about. Is about everyone fighting everyone and seeing who's the best, and that's what it's harder to get up for fights that against somebody from a different country that nobody knows, and you look good in, or even have a war. It doesn't matter how the fight goes, but people want to know British people, and you can have that bit of back and forth or whatever it is, and that's the fights we love. You look at Foxgroves, that's what people love. You look at Ben Eubank, that's what people love. They're the fights people remember. They don't necessarily remember the massive sort of even UK US fights. Like you look at Hatton Mayweather was huge, obviously, but they're 2 massive names. But even like people talk about that, but they probably still think more fondly of Ben Eubank.
Ben Eubank, definitely.
Even though you had bigger names in the world at the time, that were better fighters, a lot of time. But those dance partners they're crucial to anyone's career. And I think you look at Joe Kazagi, obviously had a couple. You had Robin Reed, and a couple of names with Kessler, but Kessler kind of came into his own against Frotch and stuff like that later on, and he beat Hopkins and Roy Jones, but everyone's like, oh yeah, but they're past it. It never really had anyone in their prime, and he probably doesn't get the respect he deserves, retiring 46-0 and beating everyone. Eubank, he obviously beat at the end of his career and stuff like that, so he never really had those dance partners, whereas, I'm very fortunate to have had all the dance partners I've had. Everyone's been in their prime, and it's great, and that's what a thriving boxing scene is about. Even if I wasn't involved in it, I'd be excited about that sort of domestic scene, because everyone's fighting everyone. and it helps build everyone's names, and that's what boxing's about. You've got to build your brand and profile and keep winning.
It sort of felt like, despite the great careers Amir Khan and Kell Brook had, that they weren't kind of complete till they'd fought each other, even though it was late in their careers.
Yeah.
Too late, that fight.
And I think, you know, a part of all of us as boxing fans is obsessed with Fury Joshua and whether that ever happens. But they've done so much in their careers, haven't they? But you just want to see them fight each other, even though they've fought great people, Americans, and the best there is in the world. Obviously, Tyson said he's retired. You believe him?
It's hard if someone keeps telling you that something and they keep going back on what they've said. It's hard to believe when they say it for the 5th or 6th time, isn't it? Who knows? He's had a great career if he has retired. Of course, everyone's going to want him to see him against Joshua for all the reasons we just stated there. But I don't think he is. But time will tell.
Time will tell. Obviously, Tyson's very good, or has been in the past, at the trash talk. And there's some fighters who've been absolutely known for that. How important is that as a fighter? Is that something you think about when you're going into a press conference? Will this guy try and trash talk me? What will I say back? Like, what's the thought process, Chris, as a fighter?
Well, I was always obsessed with George Groves and his build-ups to fights, and he was always very honest, but not and trash talky, but not really personal. He wouldn't necessarily talk about looks or anything like that. He'd just talk about boxing ability most of the time. Or whereas like him and James DeGale, for example, that was such a great build-up. You know that. And that's a perfect example of what we've been talking about.
That episode of Ringside.
That episode of Ringside will live long in mine and my mates' memories. Lads weren't even bothered about boxing, but they constantly quote that blob thing that DeGale did. And it was just absolutely hilarious, like the whole build-up. But George was very like, I'm going to beat you because of this, and this. Did the same with Froch. It irates people because there's an element of truth to what he's saying. Obviously, George sort of came through, knew how to build a fight because he was laying off David, but managed to keep it a bit more PG than David did over the years. And I think it's important to build your brand. For me, it wasn't about that. I think I saw a lot of people doing it because they should do it. And then there was a massive lack of authenticity. At least with David, it felt authentic. It felt like him doing it. With George, he did it in his own way. And it just wasn't me. So any trash talk that, if you want to call it that there has been, it's been me, an authentic me, where you see some people just saying stuff because they're trying to get a headline on the news or whatever it is, which, I get, but you need the performances to back it up then. And you need, Mayweather was great at it. He backed it up. He said this, that and the other and backed it up. And for me, it was just about that authenticity, staying true to myself, a little bit of trash talk here and there, like the Richard fight at Celeste, with the train getting derailed on my t-shirt, Skies for views and stuff like that. Nice. But it's just subtle stuff. It was just, it's not trash talk. It's not rude. It's not offensive. It's just telling him what I'm going to do. And I think that's just kind of the way I do it. But I get why people do it, because if I'd properly trash talked through my career and had the career I'd had, then I probably would have earned a lot more money. But that's there's that dignity factor which I've always tried to keep.
That's it, and that's the thing, isn't it? I suppose if you'd taken it to another level, a sort of Tyson Fury or David Haye level, or whatever, you'd have been conscious it wasn't really you, and other people would have probably recognised it wasn't the true you as well.
Yeah, I think so, and that's also not how I was brought up. My dad would have had a right go at me if I'd been a certain way. He's quite happy to let people talk away, which I'm sure is going to happen in this next fight with Brandon Glanton. He's an American who likes to. He's quite brash and the way he talks and stuff. So
we'll look forward to that.
It'll be fun, and I welcome it.
I just sort of stand on a similar topic. Steve Bunce always says that you can win a fight before you even get in the ring, just from a sight. Do you believe in that? In that, I mean, sometimes people trash talk when they're doing the face-to-face, but some people stay silent, and sometimes that's more effective. So where do you stand on the whole psychological thing in general? Going into a fight?
I think it. It can matter, but it doesn't matter as well, because I think if you believe it matters, then it matters, and if you believe it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. Because if you go into it thinking, I have to say this and win this argument to get one over on him, and it doesn't work, and you're going to think, and you're thinking about it and you're letting it affect you negatively because it hasn't come off. Or vice versa, like if they're thinking that and you get one over on them and they're thinking that, then great, it works in your favour. But if people trash talk, I'll trash talk, and if not, I won't. Like me and Ramirez was very respectful, two of the best cruiserweights in the world going at it. There couldn't have been more respect pre or post fight from either of us. And it didn't win or lose the fight. Not doing it or doing it, whatever. It was what it was. And I think if it does affect you, it's not that affects you. It's the fact that you know deep down in your mind that you're missing something in training, or you're not good enough, or something along those lines, that if they say something where it's trash talking, they're trying to get one over you, there's an element of truth to it. Like I said before with George, which is why I think people get irate, because there's an element of truth or something, or a doubt of some little bit of doubt in their minds that maybe that is true, and they're worried about that. So yeah, I think it depends on who the fighter is for sure, and depends where their headspace is at.
I mean, it's an interesting point, because in the build up to the first fight with George and Cole, it definitely appeared apparent that Cole was being deeply affected by the stuff coming out of George's mouth, and George wasn't being disrespectful. Really. Like, he was talking, as you said, he wasn't doing anything personal.
He was saying he's got bad feet and his technique's wrong and stuff like that, and he's going to beat him, and he's going to hit him with 2 right hands in the first round. And
he did.
Yeah, I think he hit him with 2 or maybe 3, but obviously dropped him the first round. So all of that, the fact George has said all that before, that could have happened anyway. But the fact he said all that and then it actually happened it played well in George's favour. You know what I mean? And then and obviously the ending wasn't one that I agreed with or enjoyed, but it obviously made for a massive second fight.
Do you see yourself ending your career at cruiserweight, or are you tempted by a potential rise?
No, I think I get asked it quite a lot. Never say never, but I really don't see the point of me going up to heavyweight. If you look at the heavyweights aren't what they used to be. I mean, Muhammad Ali used to walk in the ring about 15.3, you're weighing 15.3, 15 and a half stone in his peak, and that's basically what I get in the ring at, around that weight. So that's, but heavyweights now are 18 stone and 6'6" and stuff like that, where Ali was 6'3" in my weight. So I think the heavyweight landscape has changed. Obviously that was a very, very long time ago, but you look at Lawrence, obviously he can move up. He's 6'5", 6'6", huge frame. Richard Riakporhe fills out really well, 6'5", you know, is a thick set lad. I've kind of, from when I turned pro, I was probably 86 kilos, you know, 13.5 stone would have been my ideal weight, but I've built into the weight now where I'm a fully fledged cruiserweight. And I think for me, cruiserweight's one, the division for me, but 2, it's not like I've completed it. I'm further off it than I was before my last fight. So I think you can only really move up, 1, if you struggle to make the weight, which I don't, and 2, if you've completed the division, and I haven't. So I think it'd be silly for me to move up as the number 3, 4 cruiserweight that I might be ranked now to try and do anything at that weight is pointless. And I would never move up just for the money. I've never been driven just by the money. If I got offered stupid money for a heavyweight fight, I'd probably, you know, easiest to say when you haven't been offered it, but I'd probably say no. But I think cruiserweight I'll probably retire at.
So we're talking about money, just briefly touching on that. Obviously Saudi have completely come in and changed the face of boxing the last few years. What's that like from the inside as a fighter? Because they've made these fights, haven't they? They've made all these great cards happen. I mean, some of the recent ones have been mind-blowing. I know you're obviously on a card in April at Tottenham, which again is deep. It's a great deep card. How has it changed it as a fighter? Like when you're there in fight week and you're in Saudi, what's that experience like?
I really enjoyed it, to be honest with you. It was something different. Obviously, I was headlining, but I wasn't the main fighter. There's not, but the hospitality over there was superb. The fight week activities of the weigh-in and all that is a bit larger, a bit more extravagant, which is good fun. It's nice to be a part of those things. I really enjoyed the whole week out there, to be honest, apart from fight night,
right?
Fight and the result.
Makes sense.
But it was it was a great experience, and it's they work slightly differently. They want everything done yesterday. Like this fight got made within 24 hours,
Wow.
which is rare.
Wow.
Usually there's negotiation periods
Wow.
and this and this, and it's like, right, you got to sign it now, or you're going to lose your start. And I'm like, it's too big of an opportunity to turn down, and you don't have time to process it. You just got to sign it and then process it. Right, this is who I'm fighting. This is what I'm doing, which normally takes a couple of days. So things are different in that sense, but they're getting, would me and Ramirez have happened without them? Probably not, because cruiserweights in the States they're not bothered about. They want heavyweights or light heavyweights. So the money's not there. He's going to cost so much money to bring over here for the promoters and stuff like that, because he's been in so many fights with Bivol and whoever else, and is a big name, so he wouldn't have been cheap to bring over. So the fights have been made. Fury, Usyk been made. One undisputed heavyweight title fight, which we might not see again unless it's down to the Saudis or having that. And the belts have been fragmented for years because of lack of control and stuff like that. But they've chucked enough money at it and enough people at it to go, right, if you want it, here it is. And then people have said yes, and they're taking risks, if you want, in fights where if they were getting paid a lot less, they might not be. And I think it's only been good for the sport in that sense. And obviously with them doing shows like Joshua Dubois with Ben and Eubank over here, it's benefiting everyone, because it's not like they're just taking everything over there. They've also done the Crawford Madrimov fight in the States, which I was at, which is another great deep card. Cards are never going to be the same because the talent on the show at the moment is crazy. A lot of the Saudi shows, every fight could easily headline a card of some description. So it's been really beneficial, I think.
And wherever you stand on it, like their involvement, you have to. I think everyone has to accept that they've gone to the book and they've just ripped the politics bit out of it and just chucked it and gone, right, let's have some fights. And I don't think you can argue it. I think it's been
the fact that we've got Boxer who's with Sky Sports, Eddie who's with DAZN, Frank was with BT, all working together on boxing shows isn't a bad thing. For years it's been an issue where promoters won't work together and stuff like that, and now they're all on the same shows together. So
feels weird still, though.
It does feel weird. It does feel weird, but it's almost getting weird now because it's normal as well. But the good thing is we're still getting, Sky shows. It was Callum Simpson the other week. You had Dalton Smith from DAZN last weekend. Got Adam Azine on Sky Sports as well. It's they're all getting out still and still doing shows elsewhere. It's not just the big shows. But so boxing's in a good place, I think.
Absolutely. Well, this is one of our favourite questions we like asking everyone, but do you feel like they're the people who can perhaps bring about one governing body so that everything's not so fragmented? Like one day, if the Saudis stay in it for the longer run.
I think that's the plan for
boxing's
Turkey.
equivalent to FIFA.
Yeah, I think so, in terms of I don't think you're ever going to get a FIFA, because I don't think, well maybe, but the promoters run boxing, right? It's not, the governing bodies don't, because the promoters or the fighters pay governing bodies sanctioning fees from the promoter paying them, but the promoter are the ones that put up the money or make the money and stuff like that. It's not like the WBC come in and go, right, here's this much money for this fight, for this show. It's the opposite of that. It's the promoters that come in and pay the fighters, and then the fighters will pay a percentage of their purse as a sanctioning fee. So it's a backwards way, and that's why it's such a strange sport and a hard one to understand. But I think the whole plan with Turkey buying Ring Magazine must be to make that the one belt. He obviously mentioned it before about a Saudi boxing league or whatever it was, and kind of wanted to do that. And I think the promotion we told him that's going to be near on impossible to do.
Yeah.
But this is the way to do it, maybe. And he's obviously been bought Ring Magazine. They've had their first awards evening, which looked very extravagant. It looked like the Oscars. I didn't get down to it because I was at Caroline's Dubois fight up in Sheffield. But yeah, it looked like a great. It looked like the Oscars of boxing, didn't it? And it looked like a great show. But I imagine that'll be the route he's trying to go down. Is trying to get everyone into ring, or at least making a ring the number one, which it is seen as that, but not people don't really know about the ring belt. Like maybe casual fans start going, well, yeah, but who's the ring champion in that weight, rather than who's the number one. It's like, well, this person's world champion, yeah, but that doesn't make them number one. That's what a boxing fan might be saying. But I think the ring will end up having a ring champion in every weight, which it doesn't, and people knowing more about that. I kind of see that's the route to go in it. If you want to have one governing body, I think kind of that's the only answer to it right now, with Turkey getting involved and the Saudis getting involved and buying Ring Magazine and doing what they're doing.
Feels like it.
I think Al Heyman tried a few years ago to do a similar thing. Was it Premier Boxing?
Yeah.
And he created belts and everything else. I mean, I think boxing could probably do with governing body. What I wouldn't want to see though is like an MMA type route where they're all fighters are concealed in one company, and then UFC, Bellator, whatever, and then you end up
the fighters lose the power then.
Exactly. So I'm happy for a governing body, but I don't want to sort of end in a world where we end up like that. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree, and as well, there's limited shows with the UFC, isn't there? And you have to, how many MMA fighters there are, they have to box on smaller shows, maybe a Bellator or something like that. But people call them UFC fighters; they don't call them MMA fighters. Like people see UFC as the sport. Yeah. It's great branding, great way they've done it. But you hear fighters being underpaid now. You've got the PFL and them coming in and chucking money at it and looking like they're trying to do something a bit different, a bit more for the fighters. I don't know the ins and outs, but that's kind of the gist I get. But yeah, I think I agree with you on that. I think the fighters still need power, and their managers and their team still need power. You can't just go, boom, you're in this fight. You have to fight this person, otherwise you're out of this sport, essentially. In the UFC, you're out of the UFC or whatever it is. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that develops. But I think boxing's got too much history. The other belts have got too much history to completely lose them. But yeah, time would tell.
Would you ever do a crossover?
What, to MMA?
Yeah.
No. I'm way too. I'm not multi-skilled enough for that.
UFC Bournemouth.
Yeah, imagine that.
Dana White sitting in there.
Yeah. No, I can't imagine me ever doing that. It's I struggle with watching it, to be honest. I think my the person that I am outside the ring has struggled through the years with what boxing is like as a sport, and I've toyed with it. I was like, should it even be a sport? And then it's like, well, people kind of fight anyway. At least it kind of makes it governed and it has rules and stuff like that, and it does a lot, obviously, boxing for kids and stuff like that, and the greater good. But MMA just seems that a bit more barbaric, that little bit too barbaric for me.
I'm not a fan of it.
I've got lots of friends that do it and do jiu-jitsu and stuff, and I like the idea of jiu-jitsu, and I like different disciplines, but moulding more into one just seems a little bit too barbaric for my liking.
Makes sense. Chris, it's been great listening to you and your opinions and your thoughts on your career. Just to wrap up, do you think it's a bit of a fallacy that nice guys don't always succeed? Because it sort of feels like everyone always says you're one of boxing's nice guys, and you proved it wrong by winning the winning world titles and becoming a world champion. You don't have to be a completely ruthless, single-minded individual to succeed in boxing, obviously.
Well, no, I'm definitely I see my life and my achievements in boxing, my career as a success. So either it is a fallacy or I'm not a nice guy. It's one of the two.
Viewers can decide.
Yeah, everyone else can make their mind up on that. And I'm very fortunate for my whole career. The team I've got behind me can't be highly spoken about enough. And together we've been the perfect partnership, me and Shane. But a team as a whole, Jake McGuigan, Barry McGuigan, everyone behind the scenes, Josh Pritchard in the gym, and all the gym mates I've had over the years. Shane sets a standard in the gym, and we all have to sort of reach that standard. And because the precedent's set, we just have to. You're either in and you get there, or you're out, and that's kind of, you have to be able to deal with it. And thankfully, I've been able to deal with it, and very, very grateful.
Chris Billiam Smith, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Grant,
Thank you very
thank you
much.
too. See you next time, everyone. Thank you so much.